everybody. Welcome to the 72nd Edinburgh International Film Festival. My name's Diane Henderson. I'm the Deputy Artistic Director, and I'm really, really chuffed, very, very happy to have you all for this event this evening. Our guest this evening is here for a film called The Secret of Marrowbone, which some of you may have just seen. It just had its premiere down the road at Cineworld. It is screening again, and it's going on release on the 13th of July. So catch it then if you haven't seen it already. I'll be really quick because you're not here to hear from me, but I want to thank Entertainment One for bringing this film to us and for bringing this event to us. We can't do without people like them, and they are amazing film distributors who support us every year, and we really couldn't do it without them. So I'm going to shut up and invite people on stage here, but before I do so, I want to tell you tonight's interviewer is the broadcaster and writer Siobhan Sinnott, and again, another person we actually couldn't do without her support. She does a lot of our interview events for us. She also critiques films, she does everything, and she's amazing, and we love her. So I just want to say that. And she'll kill me and probably hit me really hard for embarrassing her. So Siobhan's going to be talking to George MacKay, and we are so excited. Please give a massive welcome to Siobhan and George MacKay, please. Thank you.
Let's just have a quick check. Have you all seen, or have some of you seen? Hands up who's seen The Secret of Marrowbone tonight? Yeah. Yes, good to see. Well, okay, maybe what we'll do is we'll start with a film that you may all have seen. So if we can just give a strong hand signal, who knows, they may pick it up at the back and run the tape. Maybe not. This is the time when we find out about our technical issues for tonight. No. I think I see somebody going, yeah, we understand what you're saying, but shut up and we might play the clip. This is George, by the way. I just don't want to talk. George MacKay, so we'll be talking about how very Scottish he is later on. So how are we doing up top? Have we managed to find the clip that we were talking about? Like that? No? Yes? Maybe? This is fascinating.
Oh, here we go.
Yay!
Always feels great coming back, especially that Ronnie.
How was she really sure of? We're holiday. We've got to enjoy it.
Have you thought about what you're going to do? Now that we're out?
Aye.
What?
What's it involves your sister? Alex. Then we'll go get carried away. I'm not getting carried away.
You can't just expect it to drop everything. That's exactly what I expect her to do. Hey, right?
Salmon smells good.
Good bread.
Yeah.
I'm on my way from misery to happiness today. I'm on my way from misery to happiness today. I'm on my way to what I want from this world. And years from now, I'll make it to the next world. And everything that I receive of yonder is what you gave to me the day I wonder. I took a right and turned it yesterday. I took a right and turned it yesterday. Yeah. We took the road that brought us to our hometown. We took the train to streets that we could walk down. We walked the streets to find the one to look for. We climbed the stairs that led us to the front door. And now that I don't want for anything, I have a true sense. I'm sitting on top of the world.
empty stomach. Mum, leave.
Well, try getting up a little bit earlier.
No, Dad. Here.
I'm sitting on top of the world.
Oh, look at you, look at me. What are you expecting you till tomorrow?
Yeah, let's go early. We thought we'd surprise you. I was worried you'd be working.
Mum, I'm just at the door. I'm on Leith's this week. So
Hey, son.
Good to see you. You too, son, you too. You hungry?
Aye.
Well, you'll have your tea. I mean, I think we're going to talk about this later on in greater depth, but looking at that, what do you remember of shooting that scene?
That scene we actually kind of worked out on the day, genuinely. We had 4 weeks rehearsal for before shooting, where we did, we worked out all the songs and we pre-recorded them and everything, and we'd sing live on set, but broadly we used the pre-record. But that one we hadn't worked out, it just hadn't come together in rehearsals, and it's it's one of the big numbers in terms of Proclaimers songs. And then Dexter was great. Dexter was always just wow, we'll just work it out. We'll just we'll find it. So maybe you could, trip him up and just grab him. And so that bit when Kev was there like that, and then she said, maybe she walks past and check her out. And we just we sort of riffed it. We had a beginning and a middle, and then Charlie and Craig were visiting the set, and he said, well, let's get Charlie and Craig in. So who are the actual Proclaimers? Those guys who come out the pub, and. So that might be the most patronising kind of yeah, they're good musicians, I don't know. And they were just visiting set, and he was like, should we ask them? I said, well, yeah, definitely. And so then they got involved, and so my memories were kind of this sort of the nerves of beforehand, and then just a really happy morning.
And had you sung so much before?
No.
Sunshine on Leith?
No, so it was It was great. It was a really good sort of bonding exercise, because we were all really nervous of the fact we were doing a musical.
Yeah.
We turned up to the read through, and they went, all right, and this is Roddy, who'll be playing guitar for you. And we went, we're singing, and they were like, well, yeah. And it's like, what, today? Well, it's a musical, so yeah. So, but we were nervous, but that was kind of what was great. Is once you sort of give your all to it, feels good.
Now, we should perhaps get this out of the way. George MacKay.
Aye.
And you've been in Sunshine on Leith. You've worked on For Those in Peril by the talented Scottish filmmaker Paul Wright. You've worked with Kevin MacDonald. So are you Scottish?
Yeah, somewhere, yeah. I think they say Sassenach. My dad's actually Australian. And that's obviously made up of lots of Scots, English and Irish from way back when. So there'll be a Mackay clan somewhere, but actually immediately it's my mum's very English and my dad's Australian.
Well, we'll put you up for adoption at the end of the show.
If you could, that would be lovely. Thank you.
So, was there much of an acting background in your family? I mean, were you encouraged from an early age to follow this particular career?
No, not really encouraged, not dissuaded. I was just I was always into drama. I would do stuff I put on a version of Peter and the Wolf when I was really young, purely for the fact that I could dress in my turn my Batman costume inside out and be the wolf. We got sort of involved with friends, and we put it on, and I made tickets for people to come and see it. We did that. So I was kind of into drama and things. But my first role was when I was 10, and was a casting lady called Jaheen Baig just came around to my school, and she was looking all across schools and kids to be in the film Peter Pan. And it turned out 3 Lost Boys came from my school. We went to a workshop and then a number of auditions, and I eventually got the part. And so my parents were always just very kind of supportive, but quite chilled out about it, and just saying, take it, have this experience and enjoy it and have fun and let it be that. And it turned out to be the most amazing time. We went to Australia for 8 months to film Peter Pan, and as a 10-year-old, you're on a full-size pirate ship and in a everything was built as well, all the sets. So you walk into a warehouse and the whole thing would be a rainforest, and it was just like mind-boggling. So we kind of came home and went, oh, I'd like to do that, and then they've just always been very supportive, really. So yeah.
So they never said to you, have you ever considered accountancy, George?
No, not accountancy particularly. They said, make sure you work hard at school so you've got something to fall back on. Because I was lucky that I worked sort of consistently but sparsely through school, and so school was always important. They said, you need to have something to fall back on if it doesn't work out, or if you decide you don't want to do it, or and I wasn't sure what that thing might be, but so they've kind of been pretty level-headed about the possibility of doing it.
Do they think that you're okay now?
Yeah.
Career-wise.
I think they're just very supportive. They're really, I mean, and it means a lot that they are. Like, it's kind of that they show an interest in my work. And my dad works a lot, so it's kind of almost been interesting understanding him better, because it's like any job, but particularly like acting is quite a personal job, and even in the way that it sort of takes you different places. Geographically, and it's all sort of emotionally quite intense, and so I've kind of, my dad's, being away working a lot when I was growing up, I kind of just knew it as quite a mathematical thing that he was working. I didn't really know what that meant, but now I know that people work a lot if they need it for certain things, or they just simply enjoy it and love it. So it's been a kind of good understanding of them as much as working more myself.
We should talk a wee bit about For Those in Peril, because although I'm not sure if everybody's seen it, because it was quite a small film, but I think it's a very significant film, because it won you a Scottish BAFTA for Best Actor, and also it turned up in Cannes at a time when Scottish films and British films weren't really turning up at the Cannes Film Festival. And it's a very sort of delicate subject matter. You play the one surviving fisherman of a terrible tragedy. See, there's the bell there.
Yeah, the ghost ship.
and I mean, amongst other things, you have an incredibly authentic northeast Scottish accent, and it's such a specific area, because it's like between Aberdeen and Montrose. How very, very specific is that? And you nail it. And that is why for a long time I thought you were Scottish.
Oh, that's very kind of you.
But how did you get the part in the first place? How did you come across Paul Wright, the director?
It was so lucky. Like, I didn't know Paul's work beforehand, and an audition tape came through, and there was no, a bit like Sergio's film. Sergio, who directed Marrowbone, The Secret of Marrowbone. There was no script at the time. It was just these scenes, so as you've explained, the story is of this one survivor of this fishing boat accident, this boy called Aaron, who's kind of a bit of the runt of a litter, I guess, for want of a better terms. Like, his brother never came home, and if anything, he was the weaker of the two brothers. And as he kind of spirals in the grief, he is sort of scapegoated by the town for it being strange that him be the only one to make it back, and because none of the bodies were ever found, that he starts to believe in this fairy tale that his mother told him about the devil in the heart of the ocean, and if he can sort of reenact that fairy tale himself, he'll get back to him and get his brother. And there's this really beautiful scene. There was 3 scenes came through for the audition, and one of which Paul wrote this scene, which is between Aaron, who I play, and Jane, who is the grieving ex-girlfriend, ex by circumstance, of Michael, his older brother, and she asks him. They're talking about missing Michael, and then she asks him if he thinks that Michael would be missing her, and then to get him to talk to her as Michael. I just thought it was such a sad, beautiful scene that I just thought it was wonderful. And then when I met Paul, so I did these audition tapes, and then Paul came to London and I had an audition with him, and it was this great audition where he gives this amazing direction, which is so clear and then also so open, where there was loads of scenes to learn, and so I'd learnt all these scenes, and he got there and he kind of just went, I will just use it as a framework, just put them away, and we hopped into it, and he would say things. I remember one in particular where there's another scene where Aaron's developed this really close friendship with Jane, and he's kind of needing her, and he's coming on quite intense in his sort of need for her. And he says, he just gave me the note of just to do whatever you want, but scare her within the scene. And stuff like that, where you know exactly what your director wants from you, but the way in which you can do what he's asked of you, the possibilities are almost endless, was so thrilling. So we had this really fun audition, and then I, lucky enough, got the part, and we had and we went and filmed it.
And how did you get that accent?
I mean, it's kind of, to be honest, there's a fair element of fluke that it worked out being as specific as it was.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, I've been all right at accents, and I enjoy accents. Always, even when I was younger, like messing around with them. And for some reason, the Scottish one sort of, I kind of got the rhythms a wee bit, but I think it's lucky that it was that specific. I mean, I wouldn't have known that I was doing Montrose. I was kind of aiming at Scottish, and lucky it wasn't. So,
Because you have worked with accent kings like Eddie Marsan.
Yeah, and the thing was that For Those in Peril meant a huge amount to me in learning, and as a process of work. And one thing that I did on that in terms of accent is that just before, the year before I got that For Those in Peril, I'd worked with Eddie Marsan, who is the most amazing actor and the most amazing professional. And he's from East London, and the job that we worked on, he was playing a German character, and he would do his accent the whole time. And my biggest hang-up when I was doing a bit of, when I was working at school, was that the idea of being a pretentious actor, or kind of doing it and it just being a bit awkward. And the thing about Eddie is he's so pragmatic about his approach that he does whatever he needs, as long as it doesn't encroach on other people. He's so confident in doing what he needs to get done, and he would go around set and talking this German accent, going, people are going to think I'm ridiculous for doing this, but I have to. And he was getting knocked for it as well. People would, in a nice way, would be taking the mick out. Hey, how are you this morning? And he just kept doing it, and he didn't drop it. And then when he clocked off at the end of the day, he'd go straight back to talking as he talked from East London. And I just thought that was so brave. And I remember speaking to Kate Dickey, who in the rehearsals that we had, and I said, I think I've got to do this accent, Kate, and I think I'm going to try and do it all the time. And she went, I think you should. Go on. And on the first day I saw her and sort of went, hello. And she sort of gave me a silent, well done, hello. And I did it from then, and then it was fine. And I stuck with it. And then so I did Sunshine on Leith the week after that film. So I think I was in a good role of Scot. So yeah.
Because I'm sort of coming. I think we're going to play a clip soon from The Secret of Marrowbone. But I just wanted to talk about something that had occurred to me, which is that you seem to play the leaders of slightly disconnected tribes. I don't know if you've noticed that yourself. I'm sure you have. Yeah. But I'm thinking about How We Live Now, for example, which is based on a very popular young adult novel. There was a lot of attention. And it's directed by Kevin MacDonald, of course, who is who did Last King of Scotland and is at this very festival, doing Whitney, book now. But one of the things I remember about your character is that, one, you carry a hawk in the first scene that we see you in.
Yeah, Raj, he was called. She was called. It was a female hawk called Raj.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was Raj well behaved?
It became a thing if we called it the awkward hawk, because when hawks are nervous and they're tethered up, they just do that. And so if ever there was a scene on set, like if me and Saoirse had to do a love scene or something, like Tom Oliver would be there like.
I mean, the other thing I remember as a sort of brave choice is that you were playing the romantic interest in this film, Saoirse Ronan's romantic interest, and you're wearing a pink jumper.
Yeah.
Why?
Because that job taught me, Jane Petrie, who's a Scot, taught me so much about costume on that job, and it's become so important to me in building a character, because she was, and the same way that Paul taught me a huge amount about acting and just being involved, and Jane said, right, your costume's not complicated, you live on a farm, So it's probably going to be jeans, t-shirt and boots. But therefore we need to find the perfect jeans, t-shirt and boots. So let's meet up, have a coffee. You tell me what you think. And I was already going, what I think? Okay. And then,
How old were you at this point?
20. And then she said, and then we'll go out and we'll find these jeans and we'll find these boots. And she showed me a picture of a young sort of farm lad. And she said, you know, does he look like he's from the city? And this guy was in a navy blue t-shirt. And that was it. Like, not it, but like it was a portrait. And I was like, no, he doesn't. She said, exactly. You can tell he's not from the city and he's just in a t-shirt. And she said, that's what we need to go for. And so we went out and we went shopping. We found these boots and we found these particular Levi jeans. And then I was saying that it made me start thinking differently. And I remember being like, it's okay to offer this up. And I was saying in the way that Eddie, this character, doesn't speak too much, but he kind of lets his kids play around him and is quite natural. And I said, I kind of imagine him like when you see a big male lion and he's just laid out and there's cubs like pulling at his ears and at his eyes and he doesn't do anything, but he's kind of okay. And what a lovely image that is of just sort of seeing that thing that he could kill him in a second. He's 8 times the size of this thing, but he's just letting them kind of do all that. And I said, I think that's what Eddie's like. And she went, that's great. And how can we work with that? And I said, I think he's quite comfortable in himself. He doesn't really care. So he's not trying to look consciously cool. He's just practical. So maybe he just, like, when they go swimming, maybe he wears his mum's shorts. Because he doesn't live with his dad, he lives with his mum.
Yeah.
And so he just wear those. And she's like, it's great. So we found these ridiculous shorts that, like, we didn't end up using those particular shorts. But, like, and maybe he ties stuff around his head and things. Let's make him practical. Like, the sun's out, he doesn't have a hat. He's probably too carefree to buy a cap. So the sun's out, so he'll make a turban out of his shirt. And it's not going to look cool as the romantic lead to have, you know, a sort of shirt, turban and multicoloured ladies' shorts, but that's how he'll be.
Yeah.
And that's his sexiness, is that he doesn't care.
Yeah.
And that can be our way of doing it. So, and it was Jane who kind of, through involving me in talking about costume and encouraging that discussion, I think anyone who encourages you to have an input, it kind of makes you realise that as long as, again, if it doesn't encroach too much on others, it's worth it. And the worst that can happen is people just say no.
And what was it like working with Kevin MacDonald?
Great. I was really intimidated to start off with, like, because how I live now, I wanted that job more than anything. I don't really know why. I think it was probably because of Kevin to start off with, and then Saoirse. And I remember just wanting it so much and kind of feeling like I get it. I think I get it. So I hope, but I don't really know how to do it, if you know what I mean. I just think, I just know the world a bit. And then my sister read the book, and she'd read the book. It was the only book that my sister had read twice, and so it kind of felt, you had connections to it.
Oh wow! What did your sister think you were going to be as good as?
Well, he's quite different in the book.
Yeah.
He's 14 in the book, and he's sort of Tom Holland's character in the book.
Yeah, it'd be quite tough if you were dissed by your sister, though.
It
when you're
would.
going up for a role like that.
Yeah, and it's funny actually. I auditioned for Tom Holland's role first, and then the film fell apart, and a year later it got refinanced, and then by that point I'd grown up a bit, so I auditioned for Eddie, but so working with Kevin was great, but in the same way that I think I was tripping over my own anxiety a little bit, in terms of I was just very nervous for a lot of the time, and it took a wee while. I mean, it's lovely in hindsight, but I was just genuinely a bit nervous and kind of didn't really feel like I knew how to talk to him, or if I did talk to him, I should say something really profound. And so I didn't talk. But it took a wee while, to be honest. But it was amazing. It was a real privilege. And it's also, you have different relationships with different directors in terms of, like, I think I had a relationship like I did with Paul afterwards, because I felt like I was learning all of a sudden and had learned so much and had experiences like with Jane, but probably, admittedly, nothing to do with Kevin, but just out of my own anxiety, didn't really feel able to know how to do that with a director. And so when Paul was a bit more kind of like, the whole production was a bit more low key, he was, and we just sort of would spend all my time was with Paul, basically, you know, and we had 5 days rehearsal. I felt a bit more kind of able to just, you know, to talk it through, because we'd be sat having chicken nuggets and chips in his house in Montrose where we were staying, and we did everything together for the 5 days of rehearsal. And again, that was a mad summer. That was one of the most amazing years I've ever had in life in general. But that summer I got How I Live Now, which I've made some of the best friends in my life on that job. And then a week later, I shot For Those in Peril, and a week after that I shot Sunshine and Leith. And I've made some of the best friends of my life, you know.
And did you think after that incredible summer, this is how it's going to be like pretty much all the time now?
No, but I had a better idea of how I wanted it to be.
Very good.
Yeah.
Which brings us to The Secret of Marrowbone.
Yes.
And we do have a clip, and we've been talking about how to introduce this, particularly since we'd love you to go and see it if you haven't seen it. And we wouldn't want to spoil it for you.
No.
So I think it's safe to say that it's about a family who arrive in America.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you, because
Yeah.
you'll cut my throat when I
No,
go too
no.
far. No, a family who come over to America in mysterious circumstances.
Yeah, they're kind of running from their past.
Yeah.
And once they get there, they're presently trying to make the best of the situation. And Jack is the eldest sibling. Jack's who I play, the eldest sibling of the Marrowbone family, and they've got to live in secret until he turns 21 and is able to look after them. But within the house, things unfold.
We should say it's a real house.
It's a real house.
It's a real house. I think we've got a clip which might show how real this house is. Let's try the strong action.
Jane? Sam? I'm home. Where have you been? Oh. Oh. Oh, but nobody leaves the house unless it's absolutely necessary, Jack. It's your rule, not mine. I can smell perfume, you know, every single time. That's strange. You know what I mean?
Can't expect him to be here all the time. They love each other.
She doesn't know the first thing about him, Jane.
Does she ever ask about us?
Of course he does, all the time. Yeah, what do you tell her? Yeah, I thought so. You talk too much. You'll get us in trouble.
Uh-oh, someone's jealous.
Shut up, Sam. Why would I be jealous?
Because Jack has a girlfriend and you don't.
I don't care.
Have you kissed her yet?
It's none of your business.
What if she comes to live with us someday? Home would be a better place with her in it.
You can't be serious, Jane.
Why can't I live with the girl that I love?
What about our promise? Does that mean nothing to you anymore?
The things that I do to keep you all safe.
Safe? Oh, tell me, what about this feels safe? Well, it's wrapped in you while you go around doing whatever you please, but that's just fine, Jack.
Be quiet.
Fine. Maybe she should come and live here then, huh? Why be quiet?
Shut up.
About Mum.
Billy!
Truth about Dad. Why can't you handle it? Get out. You know it's get Why don't you tell her the
Get out!
My Jane! Don't touch me! Don't shut the door on me! Get out! Why? Get out! Why? Because you want me to leave! You want me to leave! Leave! You need me more than I need you! Leave!
Now, that's directed by Sergio Sanchez,
Yes.
who I think
He's
is with
here.
us.
Yes, this is Sergio here.
And who wrote The Impossible and The Orphanage, as you probably all know. So an interest in the supernatural and in lost children, perhaps, in previous films? I don't know. What were you expecting? What was your approach when you auditioned for the role of Jack?
Well, when I very first auditioned, there was a there wasn't a script to read, a bit like for those in Peril. I just had the scenes, and so when I met Sergio in the room, and he explained the way in which the story unfolds, and I just thought the possibility of that and how he wanted to tackle the telling of that was so fascinating, and so courageous, because it's so complex, and that's why it's a difficult one to talk about. But I was just sort of amazed at the possibility of trying to do what Sergio wanted to do and wanted to realise, and kind of realising this incredible script that he's written. So then when I read the script before my next audition, and it was kind of like piecing together this beautiful puzzle, and then I did a second reading, and then eventually got the part. Should we say? It might be quite interesting. Yeah, well, there was another fellow who was cast first. Which it probably wouldn't be like fair to name, but they decided to cast another actor who I don't know why, but didn't end up doing it. So I was more than happy to clean up. I'll have it. So if you don't want it, man, I'm there. So so it was a pleasure. So it didn't change my process in trying to get it. I wanted it just as much, and so it was kind of, I'm glad really glad it worked out as it did. Yeah. So we had the most amazing summer, and I really, anyone who hasn't seen it, please go and see it, because I think it's a really beautiful film, and what Sergio's trying to do, and the ethos with which it was made, in way that not just the summer we had and kind of emotionally and the effort that everyone put in, but also in the way that, and I guess with horror films as well, it's not a horror film, but so much of nowadays, because of the delicacy of kind of just simple, like the economics of stuff, making your money back, and also almost just the economics of experience of going to see something that you're sure you like. It's rare that people really, really go for something like complex and beautiful and strange, and that's what Sergio's done. That's what everyone's done in it. So if you can, go and see it, please. And if you've seen it already, it's a film that's been made to be watched at least twice. So, which you will realise the first time you watch it. So please go and see it.
And you shot in a house, real house.
Yes.
And you shot not in America or Britain, but in Spain, of course, perhaps. Are Spanish filming practices different from ones that you'd encountered elsewhere?
I don't think too much. I think, like,
they treat lunch very seriously.
Yeah, well, no, there's Pocadillo, which is like, I quite like. I've worked in, not to sort of do a disservice, I did a teleseries in. I feel bad now, but like some sets you get and there's just loads of food all the time, and it's really distracting for everyone. And so the fact that everyone just stops together, and everything happens together in Spain, and it's just that I like the Spanish culture of kind of the passion that goes into everything, and wanting to go towards that, rather than sort of, the English thing of like, am I okay to do that? Which I know that I do still. I'm quite English about certain things of like, is that all right we're going to go there? Okay, all right, okay. And whereas in Spain, when we made this, everyone wants you to go there, and so you want to go there too, and so it just breeds people wanting to give more, and it just is a beautiful atmosphere to be a part of. So that's a kind of difference. I mean, the logistics of it aren't that different in terms of your days and things like that. But I guess so it's like an ethos that runs through it. It's slightly different.
And you are a family unit. We've seen some very strong performances. And of course, the youngest is 7 1/4, as I think Sergio was telling us when he auditioned. That's Matthew Stagg, Sammy. How do you go about bonding into a sort of cohesive family unit for a production like this?
Well, I was talking with Mia about this. Mia, who plays Jane, who's here as well. I think it's really lucky to start with that we just simply genuinely got on. It's a good start-off point when you actually like each other straight away. And so that set us in good stead. And then,
this sounds like no family I ever know.
But that's... but then I guess our bonding came from a mixture of where we were, this ethos that I was saying that ran through the whole production, and the fact that we were somewhat isolated by our location, and so we spent all our time together, having fantastic new experiences together. But then also we had 2 weeks rehearsal, which is pretty rare in film, and the way Sergio worked is we did a lot of improvisation around the backstory of characters, which gave us a real sense of character first and foremost, but also the process of improvising, is quite exposing, and especially I kind of associate improvisation with comedy stuff as well. So it's sort of but with this we were mining quite dark and emotional sorts of stories and happenings, and that doing that makes you really vulnerable, and so you need to be receptive to each other when you're doing it, and that bonds you because you establish that you're in a safe place with each other, and it's a mutual respect of what the other person's giving and trying to do, so that I think that bonded us.
Well, George, I've asked a lot of questions, but of course there's an audience here, and you may have questions. If you want to ask one, stick your hand up in the air, and I'll have a look round. Don't be shy. There is no such thing, as Norman Mailer said, as stupid questions, just stupid answers.
Aye.
So that puts all the onus on George. There's a lady right up here.
Hi.
So, if you weren't an actor, what career would you follow?
It's tricky because one, I'm very lucky to have fallen into it and done it since before thinking about work. I think that was lucky. My first experiences with acting, what was lovely is I didn't think about them as a job at all, and they've therefore informed what I want to do. I'd love to direct one day, and write, and I've been doing a bit of that in my own time, and so. But that I guess kind of stems. It's a bit uninteresting because it's sort of an extension. It's like a level within what we do. I mean, genuinely, if I could have any skill, I'd be a pro surfer. Because it just seems ideal. It's like that you go to the most beautiful place in the world and surf. But then I think then a sort of serious question is, I think I would like to be. I wasn't good at science at school, and I would like to be better at science. And I did a job for a TV project which is about the 70th anniversary of the NHS, and we spent time filming in a hospital, and it was one of those, without being too kind of beauty queen about it, it was a bit of a leveller in terms of jobs that really matter that you take for granted. And I think oftentimes you want to be actors and musicians and surfers because you see them a lot, and hopefully you don't see the doctors too much, so it stops you wanting to be stuff like that. So I think I'd like to maybe have had more of an awareness of that, and I might have wanted to do something more in line with that. It's the ghost.
Yeah, I know. You disturbed a force somewhere. Anybody else have a question? Just this lady here.
Hi.
Are there any particular actors that you've worked on in any of your films that have had sort of a profound impact on how you work yourself?
Eddie Marzan, who did the accent. We worked on a TV project called Best of Men, and it's a mixture. So it's the accent thing for a start. His attitude on set all the time was a mixture. Was again the thing that he did is that I kind of got. I used to have that kind of English nervous thing about not wanting to, being kind of quite awkward about taking any ownership of what you do and sort of pretending things don't happen. Where he kind of really he respected other people so much that it made him respect himself a lot. And he said things like, just in passing, where everyone is the most important person. At some point in the day, everyone is the most important person in the crew. So when you getting picked up, it's the drivers, and when they're lighting a shot, it's the sparks and electricians, and when they're filming or lining something up, it's the camera team. And so you give your full attention to those moments and don't throw your weight around getting in the way of other people trying to do their job, because there'll be 2 minutes when you're doing a scene, and so it's absolutely your time to make the call of you need your eye line clear, you need quiet, and sometimes if you don't give the people their respect while they're doing their job, you don't really have a leg to stand on if they don't give you respect while you're doing yours. And that he sort of embodied, and that kind of just sort of pragmatism is something that I tried to take on. And he was also just a really good bloke. Like we filmed over 3 weeks, and just simple stuff like he would absolutely knock his job out of the park, but he would choose to drive up on the Monday morning at 5 in the morning himself, drive up on a Monday morning so he could put his kids to bed Saturday and Sunday night, and just stuff like that. You think, I mean, I don't have kids, but I thought that's lovely, you know.
Anybody else? Oh, over here.
What are your boundaries as an actor? Is there anything you won't do?
Oh, good one.
That's a really good question, because I used to be honest. I used to kind of think no, and then I've had a couple of jobs where you throw your absolute all into it, and you don't lose something, but you give something really kind of personal, and whether people recognise if that's how whether even if it's only you that knows what you've given over is really personal, I don't know if you get it back. You give it over, and there's a beauty in that as well. But I remember working with one actor who was just like, and I was 21, and it was this particular job where I wonderfully got completely lost in it, and there were a lot of things to do with, like, I had to change my body shape a lot and lost a huge amount of weight, and it kind of like messed with my head, and like it was kind of accessing all the emotions, and the job was fascinating. It was called Bypass. And I remember talking to him, and I was like, "Yeah, Ben, you just got to do everything, man." And he was like, "Yeah, but there's certain." We were talking about certain things. He went, "Yeah, but that's for me." And I was like, "Yeah, but you want to give it, right?" And he was like, "No, but that's for me and the two people that involves." And I was it was the first person that was like, "Oh, yeah, I guess you can keep it." So I'm not sure. I think you kind of meet those limitations, maybe. In terms of at the minute. I don't know. I haven't met anything that I wouldn't do just yet. I haven't been completely naked. I don't know, and I genuinely don't know how I'd feel about that. Like, so what? Yeah, we'll see how we go. 2 years time. Yeah, that might be it. Like, emotionally all in bits, but completely naked. Like. So, yeah. Yeah.
Just beside you. Yes.
I'm a teacher, and I've often taught private peaceful by Michael Mortensen.
Ah, cool.
About that film and making that, and what the storyline and how you got into that role.
Yeah, that.
Did everybody hear that? I'm being a bit negligent. It was a question about Private Peaceful, the George Mortensen.
Yeah, Michael Mortensen.
Michael, thank you.
Yeah, I wrote it actually.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah,
yes, the World War I drama
about two brothers who both go to war, and that I reckon properly made me want to be an actor. That job, because I was 19 and I'd auditioned at two. When I was leaving school, I kind of sort of went, I think I want to do acting, and was probably a bit blasé about it, and then wasn't really sure. I didn't get work for a wee while, so just wasn't working, and being, rather lazy. I didn't get another job. I kind of played in a band with some friends, which was great, but was kind of being a bit flippant about stuff, and then I did a short film, and then I got that job, and it was one of those parts where I went, I know this guy, I know Tomo. Tomo's kind of like, Tomo sort of comes through things by being second, like genuinely, like this is the thing, like that's like the more, like that's the guy he is that like, he just idolises Charlie, his older brother, and I had my best mate growing up was like always bigger than me, always had a girlfriend, and I was kind of like the mate, and I was sort of like, and I was like, I know how it feels to be in love with someone that the person that you love more than anything, they're together, and all those kind of stuff. I know all of that. So I was like, I know this boy, and I was so pleased to get it, and it was my first lead role, and that feeling of ownership of like your own work, about kind of really being in the mix all the time, was a real profound change. As much as the enjoyment of acting, it was that feeling to be a part of something was great, and it was with a bunch of boys like Jack O'Connell, who's a fantastic actor who I really looked up to, and you know, we were a bunch of guys, and I was 19 and quite a green 19-year-old as well, so it was like just the fun of like going out, of like, you know, that stuff, being away from home and being like, you know, I lived with them at home and I didn't go to uni and things, so it was sort of, suddenly I had a gang of mates and we were like staying in I had our own rooms in places, and you know, and we got on and we were hanging out with other adults, we were making this thing, and it was also kind of emotionally involving. It was like, that experience was just so great, and I think it was kind of quite a safe one in a way, because I just knew Tomo. There was a lot about Tomo that is about my life up until that point. We felt very paralleled. So.
And I've been sort of neglecting this side because it's a bit of a blind spot. So if anybody's got a question on this side, yes, you there in that nice back jumper.
Have you thought about theatre? And if you would go to the theatre, which Shakespearean play you go for, and which part? And being Russian, which Chekhov play you go for?
I don't know enough. I don't know enough Chekhov. I kind of know the names, but I wouldn't. I haven't. I'm really embarrassed to say I haven't read the plays. I've seen them I've seen Three Sisters when I was younger, but to be honest, I'd be talking out my arse if I was to name a character. So I'm sorry.
You've done a bit of Pinter though, haven't you?
Done some Pinter. I loved that.
How influential is all that staccato sentencing for an actor? Does it sort of start bleeding into normal conversation?
No, it was the thing about Pinter was that it was kind of terrifying. It was amazing. You read the plays. Sorry, I'll come back to... Well, firstly, Shakespeare, we did... I'd love to play Iago. I think that would be... I mean, that's just like a juicy role. And in terms of what plays that I like to see, in terms of Shakespeare, I don't know. I love how the way that people constantly are kind of reworking it, but it's just, obviously the language is so beautiful that the bedrock of it is so brilliant that it's kind of, the interest is like how people reinterpret that. And I loved Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet as a film as well, like all those kind of reworkings. I saw King Lear at the Young Vic when I was younger and was really sort of amazed by that production, and didn't really get the language at the time, but there were certain scenes. I had a friend of mine actually played Edmund. It was an actor called John Joe O'Neill, and there's a bit where they kill him, and he made this noise on stage, and that's when theatre's really good, where like he made this pig squeal noise, which is so strange coming out of a human, and it was so visceral to be in the same room as that I didn't really get a lot of what had happened beforehand, but got that bit like 200%, and that's like a memory that stuck from that play, even if I couldn't tell you the narrative in and out, which I think is worthy. But like,
me and Pinter.
Well, yeah. The thing about like doing the caretaker was the sort of the lesson is that it's like a big blank canvas. It's like, it's so deep, but there's the sort of surface level sense is seemingly completely nonsensical, and so it's just like you can fill it with whatever you want, and that's kind of terrifying because you're like, well, I don't know what I want to fill it with. I don't know what you want me to fill it with, the director. I don't know what I'm allowed to fill it with, but it's also then once you sort of take ownership of that, you can. It's fascinating. You just sort of. I learned English at school, which I found really difficult, has actually been one of the subjects that stuck around most in terms of acting, where the main thing that they taught us was that there's no wrong answer provided you can find evidence for it. And that's a bit like that with Pinter. I played a character who's just, his job was to intimidate, and he just did it with these words which seemingly made no sense at all. It was just bus routes and talks about details on renting a house and decorating a house, but what you kind of make those words mean is a really good acting exercise. And like Dexter did that, the director of Sunshine on Leith. One time he did an acting exercise where I can't remember, there's 4 lines, and I think it's like, is this your car? The other person goes, yeah, that's my car. And then you go, can I drive it? And they go, for how long? Or something like that. But then he'll just say, okay, now do it like you're going to steal that car when you get in it, and you do it like that's your ex-wife and you haven't seen her for ages. And then the next time he'll say, okay, it's your best mate, you're both pissed, and your best man, you're at his wedding, and that's the card they're going to go off with. And it's just a lesson in that you can turn any words into whatever. And that's what Pinter was like, that was a lesson in that.
So glad as well that you mentioned Sunshine on Leith again there.
Aye.
Just because I was thinking one of the great images is you and the romantic interest that you have in the film at the top of Arthur's seat, having your first romantic kiss.
Yeah, it's not. No, our first kiss happens on. I'm forgetting the name now. It's before. It's the step down. It's not quite Arthur's seat. It's Carlton
there you
Hill.
go.
That's the one. Yeah. That's
Thank
the one.
you.
Yeah. That's the one.
Yes.
Yeah, misty blue. Yeah.
But I was just wondering about the location shooting in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Not always the warmest city, although of course, obviously today that's not true.
Aye.
How did you cope with the cold?
Long johns.
I heard you became a fan of Bovril.
Yeah, but yeah, I've forgotten that. Yeah, I drank a lot of Bovril, and yeah, Bovril, and the makeup artist would Nicole would always tell me to bite my lips because I've got a tendency to go blue when I go cold, and once I get cold, I stay cold.
Yeah.
And so she'd just come up and kind of before a take go, like that. So sit that up. Okay, and then be all like singing and stuff.
So you'd be healthy looking.
Yeah, it's just like slap and bite.
And how jealous were you of Peter Mullen's singing voice?
Oh man, like that voice in general, it's the greatest voice ever. He sounds like Tom Waits, as we were saying.
Yeah.
And he's just, he's fantastic, Peter. He sounds terrifying, but he's so warm. He's so like, yeah. It's great. And but again, a lesson in when he did that is, singings might not be what he usually goes for. And in a mixture of kind of bringing the scene to himself, but also, we were all a bit like, oh, it's your song now, so go and do a big song. And you're like, nah, there's a way into this. There's a better way into this. Like, it's a speech. So maybe I'll talk the first bit. And just, again, being around actors who kind of go, I know that this is what has to happen, but maybe there's a better way of getting to that thing, was a good lesson. So, yeah.
Any questions from... Yes, lady just in the centre here.
How do you find out and get into auditions?
Well, the first one I was really lucky with. There was a casting lady who came around my school, and then I was lucky enough to get an agent after that. And so my agent will put me up for auditions, and it's a mixture of your agent kind of keeping their ear to the ground to see if there's something that you'd be applicable for that they can try and get you in the room for, or then they might have relationships with casting directors. Will say, look, this is the brief. We need, a young man between 18 and 25. Have you got anyone on your books? So I'm lucky in the sense that that's how I get, to audition for things. And then once you're there, then it's down to you to try and, do the audition as best you can.
Now we're running out of time. I think we've got about 5 minutes left. So this is when all the hands go up.
Aye.
Right, you were very assertive there, sir.
Yeah, one question to ask for Sunshine on Leith. What was your favourite musical sequence?
Let's Get Married in the pub.
Let's Get Married in the pub.
Yeah. In the Sarries Head. It was in Glasgow, actually, I'm afraid. Yeah, we had Mike Keats from the Cuban Brothers who was playing the barman, and he was like, "You right then, boys?" Like, he was just like, he was amazing because the read through we were all like waiting for our song, and Mike got up and just went, and just stood up for his one, and then everyone was like, "Let's get married," and he had everyone. We were all there like, "We're doing a musical," so like that was, we were all a bit like, "Oh, Mike's coming today, right? We'll do that." So that was a great one.
It is. It's exhilarating. There's a gentleman lady, I could see the hand before anything else, and also terribly bad eyes, yes.
What's up next for you?
Coming out, there's Marrowbone on the 30th of July.
See it twice.
See it twice, yeah. See it here, see it twice. There's, I'm not sure.
The NHS series.
There's a programme on the 30th, so next week, end of next week sometime, there's a programme on BBC Two called To Provide All People, and that's this poem film written by Owen Shears about the 70th anniversary of the NHS. I'm not sure, I did a couple of jobs last year which I'm not sure when they're coming out in terms of their distribution and things. I did a film called Ophelia, which is a version of, it's the story of Hamlet but told from Ophelia's point of view, with Daisy Ridley playing Ophelia.
You Hamlet, yeah?
Yeah. I did...
so there's the Shakespeare.
I was a hybrid version because, like, you know, it's not his words exactly, but it's, you know, it's worth a look if it comes out. And then there's a film called Where Hands Touch, which is by Amaris Santi with Amanda Lestenberg in the lead, about a biracial German girl in the Second World War, and I play a Hitler Youth boy that she falls in love with. Or, you know, or I fall in love with her. It's her story. And then I did a film called A Guide to Second Date Sex, which is about a guy and a girl on their second date and the pressures of assuming that you need to have sex on the second date.
But you've kind of given that away already by saying that you don't ever take your pants off.
Yeah. When I said be naked, like, it's everything. Shall I just say I've not got my penis out on screen? Everything else is. But yeah, so there's a. Oh, I really hope that will come. There's a hilarious, painfully awkward sex scene in that, which is like, it's brilliant, and it's, I don't know, I'm sure it's fine to, I don't mean to give it away, but it's all told with, you only hear the voiceovers of their thoughts, and you just watch this sex scene in real time with kind of the sort of awkward conversation and the fumblings, and then what they're actually thinking in their head. And we did, it was a great, like, we did it in this, like, it goes so wrong. But, you know, they're just trying, and it's like, they're trying to make it happen. And it's a really lovely thing of, like, you know, when you're doing dates and you kind of, you know, you watch sex on screen and it's always, like, really romantic and great. And, like, you know, and these guys just really fumbling their way through it. So there's that, when, I don't know when that comes out. And...
Coming soon, then.
Yeah, coming soon. Hey, too soon in his case. Hey. Yeah, that's where it all went wrong. And then I'm about to start a film about called The True History of the Kelly Gang, about a man called Ned Kelly in Australia. So yeah.
Yeah. Right, I think we've got time for one last... I'm going to let you choose the person who asked the last question, George.
Is it has been?
Yeah.
Yes. Perhaps not the happiest ending. I'm interested in Me Too, and whether you feel you're in a position now where you could stand up if you had any female colleagues who were being treated badly or wrongly.
Yeah, I think now is the time. Now is the time to be vocal and to support people in speaking out. I mean, I don't know anyone personally who's been a victim of that. I think but in terms of making the conversation vocal, it's important that we also recalibrate what's worth speaking about as well, in terms of, I've kind of completely jumped to sexual assault in the most obvious terms, but just sexism on set or in the workplace in general. And I think, it's important that we stand by each other in speaking out when we see it and not letting things go amiss.
Well, thank you. It's a question worth asking, and certainly very topical at the moment as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, shall we mention your film again? I can't remember what it's called and when it's out.
The Secret of Marrowbone on the 13th of July.
I think we know now. Thank you very much for coming along. And can you join me in thanking George MacKay?
Thank you.